Okay, adoption of the agenda. I assume everybody's had a chance to look at it. I'm looking for a motion to approve. Okay, Commissioner Brown, support. Commissioner Kraft, please vote. Okay, passes. Okay, that passes. Next item is public participation. Do we have anybody from the public here that would like to address the board? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Okay? Next item is department recommendations, 5A. This is a budget amendment, emergency management. Vicki, come on up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here today. Brandon Lewis sends his best regards. He could not be here, though, for a planned vacation, so I'm filling in. This item and the next item are really carryovers for budget amendments from your decisions at December's meeting. So the first item is a budget amendment for the 2018 COPS grant that was approved by the board, and basically we're looking for a total of $422,480. There's a match from the state, 75% of the funding, and then the 25% we're splitting between us and the MISD. So this amendment will set up that budget for us so we can start expending funds when necessary.
Okay, do we have any speakers? If not, there's one thing I do want to have our board staff address before we go. Any speakers first? Okay. First, the second thing then is I'd like to get a motion to move this forward, and then we can have discussion. Commissioner Romano and Commissioner Brown, supported by. Please vote. All right, discussion. I'm a rookie. All right. So here's the deal. Crystal, there's something I'd like you to address with respect to this. There's $52,000 that the county's supposed to provide for this program, which I don't think we have any objection to, but can you address where it's coming from or where it's being proposed to come from?
The request is to pull it from the general fund balance. So I did email Steve, which I think he just walked in, about that earlier today because I thought the board was intending to use, they had left extra money when they did the contribution for the general fund projects when you guys adopted the budget in the fall. So I think you guys were trying to prevent drawing from fund balance throughout the year like you had to do last year. So I sent a question to Steve about that. I know this isn't a capital plan item like most of those requests are. It is a grant. But I asked him about, not pulling it from fund balance because I know that was what the board's intention was, to try not to do that so much this year. So he did. You have a sheet in front of you with what he recommended you could maybe do, reduce the amount in the capital and the amount you set aside for capital so that you wouldn't be drawing from fund balance. Here, he can probably explain it better.
I guess I would object. I'm not recommending it. I'm saying you can do it if you want. So
okay.
I would recommend you leave the contingency in the capital plan where it's at and take the $52,000 as an additional drawdown. Just want to clarify.
Okay, any speakers on that issue? Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the director could come back up for a minute, please.
There you are.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So that we're not guessing back and forth on this, is this something that we can schedule a sit down to discuss about the future of how you want to do it, and instead of pulling it, we wanted to create some reserves in the capital projects for emergencies. We never came up with a real number of what we wanted it to be at. And then if there's stuff coming in, if we have extra money that's not going to be utilized, why would we pull it out of the general fund? So it's more of an accounting question. We would, at least myself, is to have a good understanding so that we're on the same page and we're not asking the questions at the last minute.
I don't disagree. I think, I can give you an updated number because if you remember the way this sort of transpired was there was a reduction in the amount of the 800 megahertz system. There was some money that was coming in from roads, some money coming in from the sheriff. All those things reduced, initially would have reduced the contribution. The contribution was adopted at the same level as recommended, created this contingency within the capital plan. So that's why this item is being recommended the way it is, so that that contingency amount in the capital plan remains at its highest level for emergencies.
Okay. And I hear what you're saying, but I don't think we ever sat down and said, okay, this is the number we want to have in there for a contingency. So that was never a discussion to say what percentage of the capital plans do we want to say? Is it a 500, a million, 10 million, whatever the number we wanted to see has not been discussed. So with that said, I think that it should come out of, the money should come out of that money that's not allocated until we can sit down and say, okay, to hear what you say, all right, we think that it should always be 3% of what you have in there for capital projects should always be left in case something overruns. And you see what I'm saying? We need to come up with a fixed number that everybody can agree upon, don't you think?
It would be preferable. I mean, there's money in there. You know, we had a number of surprises last year, so there's, I don't know the number off the top of my head, there's several $100,000 of contingency. As you know, that we went through quite a bit of money last year that we didn't have set aside for a contingency, so it's a little under 10% of the contribution is what's in the contingency right now, somewhere around there, 8 to 10. So,
I guess we have to figure out what do we think we should have. And I don't know, is it 5, 10, 15? You know what I'm saying? I don't know that number. So until we come up with it, if we have to put money back in from the general fund, if we agree on a certain number, I guess we can do that too, right?
yeah. Yeah, you can do it that way.
Commissioner, you all set, Commissioner? Okay. Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I guess, and appreciate what Commissioner Carrelli said, I guess my primary thought on this is the integrity of what the budget means. And if we're approving a budget, and then the rest of the year is a series of us amending the budget at every meeting with additional monies being requested, kind of diminishes the value of setting a budget. So I would hope in lieu, that we would take this money from that contingency fund rather than from our reserve funds. And, because at least that contingency fund is budgeted. We know where we're taking it from, and we're not dipping further into our rainy day fund reserve. So I just think it lends itself toward that with the information that we have currently available to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Smith?
Thank you. Steve, sorry to ask you to come back up, but so it seems to me that there would be maybe beneficial for us to, every year we have these type of things come up that you just can't plan for, right? I mean, the grant matching funds or whatever, something that would have to come out of general fund. Would it be something maybe to take on that conversation that, we might have about the contingency fund for capital and maybe take a portion of that and I don't know how, financially you do it, but you would put it into a contingency fund for these projects that are going to come up, that are going to draw from the capital fund, but that aren't capital projects, right? So can we have can we split that up at some point and put some money in a contingency general fund draw? You know what I'm asking? Because we know we're going to have a bunch more of these come through the year that we're going to be asked to draw some more money out of the general fund. Now, obviously, 50 grand and it's a good project, but everybody's trying to figure out, we already budgeted, like Commissioner Drollet said, X amount of money, and there's a lot of money in contingent. Is there any way that financially or, through your office, we can actually look at, I don't know, 250,000 of that and kind of move it into a separate line item that's set aside for these type of issues? So we're not just drawing down general fund that we didn't balance for. You understand what I'm asking?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. Budgetarily, would it be possible to add a line item that's called contingency to the budget?
Right.
I
mean, at some
we could
point,
entertain that idea.
At some point, it seems like
I don't know if that's,
every year, I mean, we know what happens, right? I mean, we know that we don't get every call right on what's going to come before us for the year for budget. So it almost seems like we should have a contingent for that type of thing too. Just a thought. But I get Commissioner Drollet's concern. We budgeted a month ago. I mean, the budget started, and we have money set aside. Maybe we should use that money first and then go to the general fund towards the end of the year if we have some problems. So, just I mean.
yeah, I know. I know what you're saying.
All right.
At this point, I would still leave my recommendation would be leave the capital projects contingency with the capital projects at this point, but.
All right. Thanks.
All right, any other speakers? All right, there's a motion on the table. This is to move it forward. Keep in mind, this is a huge grant that we're getting, and the county's matching $52,000 along with the Macomb Intermediate School is only 25% of that huge grant. So take your vote. Question? Go ahead, Mr. Commissioner.
We're not deciding now where we get that money from. We're just moving this forward. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So at what point does the decision made where that money would come from?
Full board.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Point of information, the motion is to recommend that the money gets moved forward from the general fund balance at this point. Not that it can't change between now and then for conversations, but I'm just saying that's the motion is in red on your sheet right there.
So that's what we're voting on, and if there's, somebody wants to have it direct come from our capital outlay,
You have to
an
change.
amendment would have to be
Amendment would have to be
offered.
made at full board, yes.
Okay, thank you.
But it still can be.
Thank you.
Please vote. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Looks like you're still going to be up here. Item 5B, the Budget Amendment Capital Improvement Fund for the radio replacement project. Go ahead, Vicki.
Again, this item was presented for official approval back in December. This is the budget amendment for roughly the $3.1 million that is going to decrease the non-departmental capital outlay and increase the capital improvement fund for the 800 megahertz radio project. As indicated in the, in the background information too, there's the funding sources listed on your page 26 of the amount that's coming from the general fund, public works, roads, and then the sheriff's office E911 funds as well.
Okay, we've had a lot of discussion on this as we were approving the budget last year, and you can see all the different departments, roads and public works have done their best to help contribute towards this. So at this point, I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Carabelli, supported by Commissioner Sauter. Any discussion? Like I said, we talked a lot about it. Okay, let's put it to a vote. Okay, motion passes, 11-0. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Vicki, good seeing you. All right. Item 5C, Budget Amendment. Clerk, got our clerk, Fred Miller, coming up here. Good to see you, Fred.
Commissioners, Mr. Chair. This is a simple transfer. It's reflecting my desire to have 2 appointed deputies, one at the Register of Deeds, one at the clerk's office, to be co-equals for our management. And because it's just interdepartmental, but there are 2 budget centers between ROD and clerk, we're transferring the money, so it's a budget neutral thing.
Okay, get a motion on this? Commissioner Lucido, supported by Commissioner Romano. Any discussion? Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you're asking, you're taking the money unallocated that was approved in the budget, and you're using that to raise the rates for the deputy, to make them equal, correct?
Taking one, equalizing the 2, so there's no new money, whereas the deputy clerk under previous administrations had been set at a higher level than the deputy register of deeds. My thought was to have 2 co-equal deputies, and because it's within the department, but 2 budget centers between ROD and clerk, it's just pooling those resources and evenly dividing them, so it's no new money. It's just basically moving it from the clerk's budget center to the ROD budget center.
And I understand that, Mr. Chairman, if I can continue. My only concern is that basically we're raising the wages of a deputy, okay? And I believe that you have that right as the clerk, and it has to be ratified through us. Did this go through, and I'm asking because I don't know the question to this. I have no problem approving this and moving it to full board, but I would like to hear from Labor Relations. Was this position included when they did their studies? What is the going rate for a Register of Deeds, even though I understand your reasoning, but is there a reason why it was that much lower from previous clerks? And then how are the sister counties' wages, does it compare to? I don't have anything for me to compare that on to. I appreciate and respect what you're saying. And again, I'll move this along to the full board, but if we can get some more information, at least saying HR says, yes, this falls within the study that was done and it's hitting it, or nope, that position wasn't included in the study, and or yes, this matches the, equates to equal from the other counties of similar size, if that's fair enough.
I did have conversations with HR, with Director McKinnon about it, kind of told my intent back in November. He agreed that it made sense. I think that there was no statutory reason why the deputy clerk was paid more than the register. I think it had just developed that way over time. And so now coming in with a new administration, trying to monitor things differently. And one thing that's different is that now this department is spread out over 3 different buildings, and be able to have co-equals to be able to monitor, the 85 employees. It made sense from a managerial standpoint. So no analysis was done by what deputies are paid for across the state or across the nation.
Do you understand my concern? Is the
I
position
don't,
that you're
frankly,
raising it
no.
up
I don't
to?
understand it, no.
Are we overpaid? Is the one position higher than what it's supposed to be? I have no idea. So are we overpaying that position, now we're raising the other one to equal it, and is it appropriate? I'm not saying it isn't, but I don't have anything for me to say, yes, other than we're saying we're equaling it, and that I respect and understand, but where's the baseline of the reasoning for it, I guess?
I guess the baseline is the dollars that you all allocated to us for deputy level positions, and taking the pool of money that you've allocated to us in your wisdom and allocating it as we see fit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to make sure I understand, the deputies are not union positions. These are part of the administration of the departments, and it's my understanding that those are positions that the positions that a clerk is given the most leeway with. And so I don't think that it's really all that relevant what somebody's being paid in other counties and so forth. This is essentially a decision made between the clerk and the 2 deputies, agreement and decision made there. And I think that wide latitude is traditionally given for those particular positions. So I think the fact that you're working within the budget, the odd amount, frankly, it's between you and those individuals, how you divide that up. So I don't see a problem with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. I absolutely understand what Commissioner Carabelli is saying. However, the way this always used to happen is an administrator would come and say, this person's making this and this person's making this, therefore we have to make this person make this. This is the first time anybody's ever come and said, to equal them out, I'm going to do this and not take any money out of from you guys. So I actually like that a lot better than the way it used to go. Thank you.
Okay. Any other speakers? Any other speakers? All right, we have a motion on the table. Let's put that to a vote. Okay, item passes 11-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Good job. Hear good things. We have item 5D. Captain Daniels, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm here to request that the Board approve a motion for us to approve to purchase 5 separate vehicles from the Sheriff's Office, the 3 Dodge Chargers and 2 Chevy Tahoes. The vehicles that we are looking to replace this year are from the 5-year plan, revolving plan that we have provided to the Finance Department, which was requested to us. We will be replacing 26 vehicles this year in 2019, and requesting to replace 26 vehicles. In 2020, we'll be replacing another 23. These vehicles are police-rated patrol vehicles, also administrative cars, and our court transport vans. So those are the type of vehicles we will be purchasing. If you look at your packet, the description of the vehicles are attached. In fact, will be in front of you again next month to request to purchase another 7 vehicles, which, just for clarification on my point, this budget is set forth is the fleet manager's budget. We were told that we have $935,000 in our that was allocated to the Sheriff's Office to purchase vehicles for 2019. So our responsibility is to do the 5-year plan, which we've done. If I need to come back every so often to request the purchases from this board. I have no problem in doing that. The idea that I thought we might put in place, is I can give you the 5-year plan, or I can present a 5-year plan to you at our next meeting and let you know throughout the year what we would like to purchase. That numbers will not exceed those certain dollar amounts. However you folks want to do it, they can do it either way. The idea would be that we would not exceed that 5-year plan. Things are going to change possibly as far as upfitting costs and things like that go, but as a rule, we know what our budget is, we stick pretty tight to it. The one thing that you might not to say you wouldn't understand, but I want to explain to you, is when you purchase a vehicle, obviously it's a base vehicle. It doesn't come with the options that we need for a police vehicle. So the upfitting costs are also attached to that. That includes our mobile data computers, our cages, our push bumpers on front, all of our LED lighting, and for our K-9 vehicles, we have some certain things that for our K-9 cars and our tech cars, our evidence tech cars. So those are what those Tahoes are for. So with that, I have the fleet manager here as well. She can explain the bid process to you if you need that explained. Frankly, that's not my expertise. But the Finance Department has reviewed our 5-year plan. They've adopted it. I'm just asking for approval to purchase the cars.
Okay, just so we can, before we do this for procedural purposes, the captain came up here and talked about both the SUVs and the Chargers. The Chargers are listed in item 5E, so why don't we just incorporate this? If we're going to put a motion, I'd like to make it for 5D and E. So before we have any discussions, can I have a motion for that? Okay, supported by Majak and supported by Hoff. Great, thank you. Okay, now for discussion. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. 2 things. Actually, I like that you come to us. I have been asking for a couple of years because we had not seen anything, any price tag, and had absolutely no idea. And I thought, well, they have to be spending money. So my only question, and Steve, I know I raised this before, is this unallocated capital outlay line item doesn't show the true reflective costs in the different departments. So do you remember, do you have a rationale as to why we have that unallocated line item and those aren't in their capital outlay line items?
From a historical perspective, that money was set aside for vehicles countywide. So certain departments, we may not have, a vehicle may need to be replaced, we didn't expect it. We may have, in this case, situation where we have a list now, we didn't always have the 5-year plan. So it was always there for us to be able to purchase a vehicle or more than one vehicle as needed for a department.
But you talk a lot about the internal control line item to show the true costs of different departments. Why wouldn't the stuff that's in the unallocated line item for capital outlay also be in the capital outlay for those departments to show the true costs? I don't even know how many non-sheriff cars and non-public works cars. I don't know how many roads. I don't know how many other vehicles we have. I don't know how many people have vehicles. But you talk all the time about reflecting the true cost of a department.
Correct. And what we've had discussions in my office, mainly between myself and Steve Adair, was the possibility of charging the cost of the vehicle to a department, not knowing necessarily where that cost is going to ultimately land. The idea would be to put money starting in 20 into the non-capital, or the non-departmental, and then when we need to purchase vehicles, transfer that budget to the department that's purchasing the vehicle. What we would ask is the ability to do that as long as we're doing now. We're going to bring that to the board.
Right, because
if it exceeds 35,000, as you can see, as you mentioned, as you requested last year, and we considered that,
Yeah,
so okay,
one
we
of the
should be
issues,
doing that.
right, and I really appreciate that,
Right,
thank you.
and so-
Because that's the other thing about that unallocated line item, is the fact that there seems to be a tendency that those haven't been coming to us, as opposed to the ones that are in the allocated. So, and I know you're trying to straighten that out, and I
We're trying to
really
straighten that out,
appreciate
and this is an example of that.
And I think by having an unallocated line item like that, it's easy for that to happen, and the approvals stop taking place. You see what I'm saying? So that's just for consideration. You don't have to
Yeah,
respond.
as Captain Daniels mentioned, there are a number of other vehicles that the Sheriff's Department would like to purchase the remainder of the year. The idea is to come back with a list.
Yeah.
So we get them all approved, it's not once, so you only typically buy police vehicles 1 or 2 times a year, so we're not coming back continually.
Yeah, no, we're not
over
going
and
to
over
have
and
them
over
driving
again.
on 3 tires.
Right, exactly.
All right,
So
thank you.
I understand where you're going.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, don't go anywhere.
I got a gun if you need it.
Captain, we're making it easy on you. So I have a question for you. So this money is coming out of the non-departmental,
It's coming out of the block, yeah.
but in the sheriff's budget, there's a section for vehicle operations. What falls under vehicle operations? Because that's
Mainly
about
gas.
Mainly
Repairs.
gas? Okay, and
Gas and
repairs?
repairs.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Captain Daniels.
Yes, sir.
Are these 3 chargers replacing chargers that we have now, or just brand, or are these just additional vehicles?
Yes, sir, they're replacing 3 current vehicles that we have in our fleet.
And do you have any idea what the mileage on these 3 vehicles are?
Absolutely, I do. Let me get to that. Our first Charger that we're replacing has 96,000 miles. The second Charger has 108,300 miles, and the third Charger actually has 128,000 miles on them. The first vehicle is a 2016 model year. Second vehicle, the 2014 model year. And the third vehicle is 128,000 miles on it, is a 2015 model year. We typically, just so you folks have an idea, we project when it gets close to the 100,000 mile mark is when we look to start replacing cars. That's for warranty and officer safety issues. That's why we do that.
Okay, so there's not like you're putting out, well, that's it, it's the same 3 officers or whoever they drive the Chargers, are going to be the same ones driving the new Chargers, so to
Yes, sir.
speak.
That's
So not going to be
correct.
6 of them out there, just the same 3.
No, these 3 are coming out. We're taking those 3, so it's VIN for VIN. Is what I think of it that way, VIN for VIN.
Thanks, Captain. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Carabelli?
Well, he just answered the question, so then you're going to auction these vehicles off, or it can be used for other departments?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
You all set? Okay, Commissioner Ha?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Captain. Real quick, these purchases go through the commonality purchase system that the county uses to purchase all vehicles, or do you go out and solicit individual bids? I know you said you weren't an expert on the system, and I'm not looking for a dissertation, just a quick answer.
Yeah. So I'll let the fleet manager handle that question.
And while she's coming, thank you and the officers for your service.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I do put a bid out on our Mitten website, the bid
Okay,
net.
that's all I need. I know all about Mitten.
Okay, yeah, that's where we post all of our bids.
Miss, I'm sorry, can you just state your name? I'm
Tammy
sorry.
Goike.
Thank you.
I had to use that, so I understand that part. Thank you. And thanks for staying within your budget.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Gillette?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is kind of prompted by your response to Commissioner Ronald's question. 2016 with 98,000 miles, do we really have to, can we squeeze another year out of that?
Are you serious?
Yeah. I don't know enough about.
Absolutely not.
No?
So what we're looking at a car that has 98,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-year-old car. So, I mean, that would tell you that's a 24/7 car that we're running 24/7. So the wear and tear on this car, and if I put up officers in that vehicle and they're in a pursuit and that vehicle doesn't perform the way it is, we're going to have a problem. So no, we project at 100,000 miles, we want to cycle those out. It already has 98,000 miles on it. So to answer your question, no, sir, I would recommend that we do not put another year on that car for the reasons I've outlined. That car gets a lot of use. It really does. And what history would tell you, I think, and Commissioner Sauger probably better off to talk about this, we've looked at other things, maybe used cars, things like that, or doing, keeping these cars in service in a longer period of time. I can tell you that that has not been a good business model to adopt. You want to get these cars and cycle them through and get them back get these officers into a car that's going to be able to perform for them. I mean, frankly, if we challenge one lawsuit to be coming across because our vehicle malfunctions on the road, we've been in a lot worse place than we are right now. I mean, that's a long, drawn-out explanation.
I value your expertise on it. It just seems a two-year-old vehicle, you know, it seems that we could, you know, potentially get more, but, you know, I value your expertise on it.
I didn't mean to cut you off. So we buy these cars, it's a 16 model year, we probably purchased it in 15. I'd have to look at the VIN. So you're looking at 3 complete years, all of 15, all of 16, all of 16, all of 17, and all of 18. So it's a 3-year car that we're driving. The car's probably been on the road for 3 years, safely 3 years, I would say.
Okay.
All of 16, 17, and 18. But I understand what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you might want to pick it up at the auction. Okay. All right, Commissioner Sager.
Warranties, too. Warranties run on 100,000, so that's what we're looking at.
Commissioner Sager, go ahead.
Yeah, that 100,000 has been the way it's been since I was in the department, and that's been a while now. But I got to tell a story about why we get rid of these cars. I worked in a warrant division for about 7 years. We had to go up north to pick up a prisoner, and we had our old Ford, and the damn thing broke down. So now we got this guy in the back seat. We got to hold through the whole process, come and get him, get a wrecker, bring it down, and after that, we never took a car up that had that many miles. So, you know, you may drive your car around this area with 100, 125, 150, but that poor guy behind the wheel with that scout car has got to have something he depends on. And he puts on the gas and he takes off. And he's got to make sure it's going to come back. But don't question when you guys get rid of him, because I've been through that, and I support you 300%. Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. Any other speakers? Any other speakers? Okay, one last thing. Captain Daniels, I want to thank you. And we will take into consideration, if you're going to be planning on purchasing more vehicles, maybe we can get you here just one more time. If you have an idea of what you're looking at for the year within the budget, that way you only have to come to us one more time, and then we know exactly what you got for the year. Okay?
Yes.
Good to see you. Thanks again. Well, he's got things to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you want to?
All righty. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You didn't make a motion, and we're good to?
I think we already made a motion. We just have to put the vote.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion passes. We're going to move on now to item number 6, which is a correspondence we have here from Fox 2 News. It was an article here about how a certain new tool helps our Macomb County dispatchers with 911 calls that get disconnected. I assume everybody's had a chance to read that. Are there any speakers on the topic? If not, then I'd like to have a motion to accept and receive. All right, we'll do Myjack, supported by Lucido. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. The motion passes, so we accepted it, and we received it, and we'll file it. All right. New business. Do we have any new business? Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, talking at the last meeting with Crystal, and the things we're changing on requests for budget amendments and purchases, you know, listening to this, and Steve obviously knows this and I don't, but it's like, okay, so we have all these vehicles, we auction them off. What happens to the residuals? Does it go back into the vehicle fund? Does it go back into the general fund? What happens with these funds of, and I don't know. So we're talking about how we want to build, you know, so it's clear. I don't know, and maybe he can answer it, but this is something maybe we want to include just for description purposes. Yep, they get auctioned off, the money goes to,
Back into the general fund, well, back into the fund from which it was purchased. So if it's purchased from the general fund, the proceeds go back into the general fund. If it's purchased from a grant fund, those monies will go back into the grant fund. We do have some grants throughout the county that will pay for, pay for vehicles, mainly sheriff grants.
so
So it's a program income. The income's got to follow the source of the original purchase.
So the reality is I'm guessing you didn't budget because you don't know what they would be selling a vehicle for. So let's just say they got $3,000 a vehicle and they went through 30 in a year, right? So you get $90,000 or whatever the number comes out, and you turn around and you're like, okay, I have X amount of dollars you didn't budget, that surplus going back into.
We budget auction proceed revenue.
Okay, you do, okay,
at
this is what
right around $100,000 a year in the general fund. 100 to 115, if I recall correctly.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Just with respect with what you said about him coming and giving us the number for the whole year, what we've been trying to correct is the purchases that are required to come to us by the purchase order and the contracting, the purchase ordinance and the contracting ordinance. We're just getting that corrected, so I don't want to go back to not having the actual contracts or purchases voted on.
Let me just clarify that. If he comes with a list of the next, I believe he said he needed about 9 more vehicles for the year, maybe. If he comes back and gives us all 9 vehicles and they're $36,000 apiece, then he's satisfied that requirement that we're asking for. You know, it's just that, as he indicated, he knows how many vehicles he has. He just doesn't know when he's going to be coming back to get them. So if he says, I'm going to be getting 9 in the course of the year, and that's within the budget, then I think he's following what this board would like to have happen. Any other new business? Any other new business? Okay. At this point, I guess we're looking for public participation. Any members of the public like to talk to us? Going once? Promise we won't bite. Going twice? All right. Seeing none, we'll close out public participation, and we'll go for an adjournment. Commissioner Drollet, supported by Commissioner Kraft. Thanks, everybody, for coming.